When the dinosaurs died out, their legacy of terror lived on. In the hills of Argentina, scientists have uncovered the bones of a new breed of killer. This mammoth beast, the most feared predator of its day, was no reptile or mammal. It was a killer bird. In northern Argentina, the shadow of the Andes falls on a forbidding wasteland. Few venture here. It has little to offer, but the searing heat of summer and harsh, barren landscape. Giant killers lie hidden in these hills. Local villagers were the first to find their enormous bones in the desert. Word spread quickly, luring scientists hoping to uncover more remains of these mysterious creatures. Among the first to arrive in 1926 was an expedition led by Elmer Riggs of Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History. They thought they were tracking a giant prehistoric mammal. But while digging in the hot sun, they made an incredible discovery: the skull of a massive bird. This was no ordinary bird. Andalgalornis, as it was later named, had a skull longer than a horse's. A fearsome predator, it stood 5 feet tall and weighed 250 pounds. Birds appeared about 150 million years ago. Archaeopteryx, the oldest known species, was able to fly. Most of its descendants inherited this ability, but some birds were earthbound. Like ostriches, Andalgalornis lost the power of flight, but in return, it gained the power to kill. Today, the Badlands of Argentina are dominated by the Andes, but millions of years ago, South America was a very different place. There was no great mountain range yet, only vast wind-swept plains that seemed to stretch to eternity. South America was one enormous island, isolated from the rest of the world. When killer birds evolved here, they took over, becoming top predators, a dynasty that would last for millions of years. Following in the footsteps of the first expedition, paleontologist Bob Chandler from the Florida Museum of Natural History has brought his team to Argentina to study the lair of these flesh-eating birds.
And we will be collecting from sediments approximately 50 meters down section from that ash bed.
Chandler's work reveals just how terrifying and powerful these birds really were.
All of these killer birds are some of the most spectacular large birds that ever lived. I think we can say that these birds, with their enormous sizes, that they were actually the heirs to the dinosaurs, that they were able to kill as efficiently as some of the larger dinosaurs could.
These predatory birds, known as forest racoids, evolved into a variety of different species. No animal was safe from this gang of killers. They were the most dangerous birds to ever inhabit this planet. They ranged in size from medium to gigantic. Compared to the hawk, a modern bird of prey, killer birds like Andalgalornis were in a class by themselves. These massive creatures used their bone-crushing jaws and slicing beaks to kill quickly and efficiently. Another killer, Onyctornis, weighed in at 500 pounds. Its skull was more than 3 feet long. Killer birds took over where the dinosaurs left off. Their bones are clues to this lost world, a world where birds ruled. Bob Chandler is dedicated to unlocking the secrets of the mammoth birds. What kind of creatures were they? How did they hunt and kill their prey? When killer birds evolved in South America about 25 million years ago, there were no predatory mammals to compete with them. They reigned supreme. They could eat anything they wanted, and there were many strange creatures to choose from. Megatherium was a giant sloth. Rearing on its hind legs to feed on vegetation, it was as tall as a 2-story building, 10 times the size of a modern sloth. The peculiar Glyptodon was a vegetarian the size of a small car and armored like a tank. Size and armor may have provided some protection from killer birds, but others, such as the horse-like Didaphorus, were at their mercy, practically defenseless against the vicious jaws of birds like Andalgalornis. Like the flightless ostrich today, killer birds were exceptionally fast. They could race along the grasslands at 40 miles per hour. A successful hunt depended on this great speed, combined with the element of surprise.
Andalgalornis would have lived in a savanna environment, and it would have laid in ambush in the tall grasses and would have killed the animal probably with one bite onto the backbone of that animal, killing it almost immediately. And then with its claws, it had probably 2-inch claws, it would impale the animal and hold it down, and then with its long beak, it would shred the meat and eat gulps of the animal that way.
Unlike the beaks of modern birds, which are rounded, a killer bird had a beak which was flattened, producing a very thin, sharp edge. It could slice through bone. Equipped with a perfect combination of speed, power, and terror, it could capture and devour its prey in only a few minutes. In his quest to learn more about Andalgalornis, Bob Chandler goes beyond bones and fossils. One way to find out about the behavior of extinct animals is to observe their living relatives. For killer birds, it's a creature called a seriama.
Living seriamas are the closest relatives to the extinct forest rakids that like Andalgalornis, and they did have a distant common ancestor somewhere back approximately 30 to 40 million years ago. The Seriamas are much more stalking animals. They eat small invertebrates and small mammals, whereas a bird like Andalgalornis, it actually came out of ambush and attacked its prey, was a very active and dynamic predator.
While the Seriama provides some clues to the way Andalgalornis looked and acted, one key piece of fossil evidence was still missing. The wing bone had never been found. Paleontologists assumed its wings were used mainly for balance, like the Seriama. But new findings by Chandler have solved the mystery of the missing wing bone. His unusual discovery reveals that these flesh eaters were more deadly than anyone had imagined. "3 million years ago, the kingdom of the killer birds changed forever. The island of South America collided with North America, forming the Panamanian land bridge. Now, killer birds were no longer restricted to their homeland. Some migrated north, eventually crossing the land bridge and settling in North America. Proof of this has been found in the waters of the Santa Fe River in Florida. The river runs through a sinkhole where the remains of dead animals were trapped and eventually fossilized. For Chandler, it was a gold mine. He would find the solution to the wing bone mystery underwater.
Scuba diving has to be one of the more exotic and fascinating standpoints of my research because, in fact, here I am underwater trying to excavate and take good data. What I've devised is a dredge system where I'm actually vacuuming up a riverbed in north central Florida, producing many thousands of fossils for my own and other research. You're in a completely different environment, and it's very alluring. Sometimes you actually lose track of time while you're collecting these important bone beds, and you're looking for more and more fossils. You sometimes, in fact, put out of your mind other things that are swimming right around you. In fact, we've had one diver come in contact with an alligator.
Chandler had uncovered some enormous specimens.